new favorite standard. And we're going to hear from Ron Ross, who works on our NED engagement team. He's going to give you an update on CIP-15, the internal network security monitoring. And then I've heard he's going to do a little bit of a plug for our assist visit program at the end of his presentation. So stay tuned. Ron, how you doing?
Doing well, Brian. Thank you. Hello there, everyone. I'm Ron Ross from NED Engagement, and today I'll be talking about CIP-15-1, Internal Network Security Monitoring, or INSM. So let's get started. So the purpose of this standard is to improve the probability of detecting anomalous or unauthorized network activity to facilitate improved response and recovery from an attack. The goals of INSM are to enhance cybersecurity of the bulk electric system, improve visibility within internal networks, and to detect unauthorized or malicious activity. Next slide, please. Why is INSM important? Well, threats are increasingly becoming more sophisticated. There are threats from supply chain, insiders, whether INSM provides real-time or near real-time detection of anomalous traffic. In addition, you gain a better understanding of network behavior and improved incident response capabilities by being able to detect and contain attacks. Next slide. Before INSM, there was traditionally only visibility on the network perimeters, as you can see in the diagram. And next slide, after INSM, you gain new visibility into your internal networks that typically wasn't possible before. Next slide. So we have a Slido question here. Where are you on your internal network security monitoring implementation? So all those on Slido, please give us an answer and we'll I see the
Ron,
responses.
can you see the results on your screen?
Yes, I can.
All right, we got 34 people who have voted, but I know I could see we have like 250 people on the call, so please don't be shy.
Yeah, don't be shy and go ahead and answer the question. I'm glad to see what I'm seeing so far.
Also, Slido is anonymous, so this is, and it's non-binding, so please just pick one of the multiple choice.
This is encouraging. We got 63 so far. 65.
Ron, I could keep an eye on it in the background. So right now we're at about it's pretty good. 60% have either began the planning or began implementation. So that's pretty good to see.
That is. Let's go ahead to the next slide, please. So the FERC order that approved CIP-15 also directed modifications to the standard to extend those protections to access control systems outside of the electronic security perimeter. So those will be coming down soon. Next slide. So CIP-15, in order to provide methods for detecting and evaluating anomalous network activity, requires implementation using a risk-based rationale, network data feeds to monitor network activity, and one or more methods to detect anomalous network activity from the data feeds implemented in 1.1, and one or more methods to evaluate the anomalous network activity detected in 1.2 to determine further actions. Next slide. Further, R2 requires the implementation of one or more documented processes to retain the INSM data determined to be anomalous at minimum until the action in support of 1.3 is complete. R3 requires processes to protect that INSM data in support of R1 and R2 to mitigate unauthorized deletion or modification. Next slide, please. So implementation dates for CIP-15 are October 1st, 2028 for high impact and medium impact BES cyber systems at control centers with external routable connectivity. All other medium impact BES cyber systems with external routable connectivity are required to be compliant October 1st, 2030. While this requires compliance ultimately for high impact and medium impact with external routable connectivity, you could consider performing some type of INSM for those medium impact without ERC, or external routable connectivity control networks, or low impact networks. Keep in mind, even if you do not have external routable connectivity, malicious code can be introduced, for example, via SneakerNet using a USB drive. Stuxnet was able to get into the Natanz control network most likely via an infected USB flash drive, even though it was air-gapped. While there are requirements for reviewing removable media, there is a possibility that a determined or unwitting individual would be able to plug in an unauthorized device. As a further example, in 2017, there was an incident where the Triton malware targeted Triconex industrial safety systems of an unidentified petrochemical plant in the Middle East, causing a shutdown of the plant twice. It is believed that this was a state-sponsored attack that got a foothold on Windows systems at the plant that the attackers were then able to gain access to the safety systems. Triton is credited as the first malware that targeted industrial safety systems with the intention of causing human death. So you can see why INSM is very important. Next slide, please. So for some strategies for implementing INSM, if this effort has not been started, you'll need to invest time and resources to, first, identify what capabilities and information you have in your various environments. For example, an EMS versus a substation network versus a generation plant network. Next slide. You may possibly need to invest in additional technology for sensors and storage. You may need to invest in training or additional personnel to perform INSM duties. Lastly, you should develop baselines of network traffic to be able to understand what is anomalous. Next slide. So for some possible challenges you may encounter while implementing INSM are, first, legacy systems may prove difficult to adapt into your INSM strategy, or there may be a lack of visibility for some systems. Resource constraints may prove difficult both in personnel and equipment. Finally, while tuning the INSM solution, there may be alert fatigue from evaluating false positives within the network. Next slide. So for compliance considerations when building your INSM program, first document your processes. Maintain your up-to-date network diagrams and detection rules. Document your monitoring rules and network flows. Maintain your logs and alerting evidence. Test and update your incident response plans for INSM. Demonstrate that all applicable assets were considered when developing the risk-based monitoring plan. Finally, start the process and planning early so you're not scrambling to implement near the compliance date. Next slide. Finally, here's some links you can reference for INSM, and especially if you have an hour of time, watch the video for SRP's Journey for INSM. It's an excellent presentation that shares some of the challenges and lessons learned from Salt River Project's INSM implementation. And just some highlights from Mark Johnson Barbier's and Brent Hyen's recommendations for INSM deployment and lessons learned from SRP. The first is use the MITRE ATT&CK framework for ICS. This is if you're on the journey started to implement INSM. The MITRE ATT&CK framework is the framework for behaviors of adversaries on the network. A second good point is engineers, EMS support, and DCS experts should be involved in the process of developing INSM strategy. They know best what to look for and what's important to operations. Keep in mind traffic levels can be higher than you anticipate, hence the need for baselining your network traffic. Next, identify switches at each location to be monitored. There can be more than anticipated. Another tip, you need monitoring capability for downspan ports on switches where you're capturing traffic. Consider deduplication of traffic, especially for multicast traffic. Consider using aggregators in your strategy. Make sure you scale properly for the traffic to be monitored. And finally, consider not stopping with the network. Endpoints, where possible, can provide data. These are just some of the tips that Mark and Brent provide in that SRP's Journey for INSM, and I highly recommend you watch it. Next slide. Finally, keep in mind if you have questions regarding your implementation plan or would like to discuss the implementation plan, please don't hesitate to request an assist visit. You can find the form on our website under Tools and Services, Assist Visits, or reach out to myself or Mike Hughes. We can then set up a discussion. Thanks for your time.
Ron, thank you for your time. And we have an announcement in the Slido. It's to the link for www.outerfirst.org, Tools and Services Assist Visits, or you could email Mike Hughes or Ron Ross, and they'll help you out. So our job is to help you walk you through this process, share what we know, share information, share our expectations, and get you going with this internal network security monitoring. Ron, I found that story fascinating about they're already in our systems and the reason why, how and why to watch all this. So, regarding, if we're doing internal network security monitoring, we find someone in our systems, is this just a matter of following your CIP-8 plan for incident reporting and calling the ISAC? Like, once we get there and we find a deviation from the baseline, what do we do?
Correct. You implement your incident response plan. So what you need to do though is make that INSM strategy part of your incident response plan as one of the triggers for bringing that in, so that you can, one, the INSM should detect, then two, you can contain that threat within your network and then eradicate it as best you can.
Very good. I feel like I should bring back Lou and we should do like a session on like internal network security monitoring in the cloud. But I feel like this might be a little premature for to talk SIP would be 115, I guess, right?
That's probably SIP 120 or
Yeah, there you go.
yeah, you're right. SIP 115 would be it. Yeah, a little premature to talk about that.
Okay. Ron, you might have mentioned at the beginning, I apologize, I could look it up. When does the new standard go into effect?
The new standard goes into effect for, okay, let me go there. Implementation dates for CIP-15 are October 1st, 2028 for high impact and medium impact BES cyber systems at control centers with external routable connectivity, and all other medium impact BES cyber systems with external routable connectivity are required to be compliant October 1st, 2030.
Okay.
So
So
2.5 years for high impact and medium impact BES cyber systems at control centers with external routable connectivity.
Brian, if I could jump in and add a little something there. The drafting team requested and FERC approved a 3-year and 5-year implementation window. They didn't do that so entities could just sit around and say, well, we ought to do something pretty soon. You need that lead time. If you haven't started yet, you need to get started, please. That 3-year time window and 5-year time window, those were not granted out of the kindness of anybody's heart. You need that time to get this stuff done. So please don't put it off.
100% agree, Lou.
there's a very wise saying. It says we have time, but we don't have time to waste.
Yes.
That certainly applies here.
Ron, is there any and I know a lot of it's, it depends and to be determined. I had a question come in about like, if you're doing INSM, how is it different based on your architecture? Like, suppose you're a transmission control center and you have a very large SCADA system, or you're just a generator and you have a small GMS. Is it like the same concepts, or how does it vary depending on like how much or you're trying to monitor and how different it is?
There's similar concepts. You're going to have a different strategy based on the size of the network and what you want to monitor from. Like typically on a smaller site, you could probably get away with span ports on a core switch, and then maybe you have other little switches off of that you may want to monitor some of those more important ones. Then, if you have a big EMS network, you're going to be doing it on multiple switches. Probably you have multiple, you have a core switch and then multiple switches coming off of that. It could be at different, routers between different sites if you have a multi-state network or something like that.
Very good. Thank you, Ron. One last question. I know it's early. Do we had assist visits with or talked to anybody yet who seems to be really ahead of the curve? And you don't have to mention the names right now, so we don't have to put anyone on the spot. But if we have some examples, I think that the CUG or the CIPC, I think they're interested in kind of learning from one another. Is that something where we've seen somebody like kind of ahead of the curve, or are we still taking in that information?
No, we've actually had some assist visits on CIP-15 so far. One, we've had an ask about how to designate some of the equipment for INSM, whether or not that falls into like EACMS or what type of devices they are. So we've been getting some great questions from some great entities out there that are way ahead of the curve.
Very good. So, we're not going to mention names on the call, but if that's something where you want to be connected with like a like-sized entity, it might not make sense if you're a large RTO or a small generator. You probably want to be matched like size. Reach out to us, reach out to the CUG, reach out to SIPC, and then they can help make those connections so we can all work on this together. So, Ron, I did it to Marion, so I'm going to do it to you. What's your favorite standard?
Uh, like Marion said, they're all like my children. I like them all. But I particularly have a love for CIP-8. Incident response was where I actually got started doing my information security journey.
Thank you, Ron.